Long before the pyramids of Egypt were a tourist hotspot, southern Africa had its own forgotten empires. From the bustling iron villages of the Zhizo to the gold-laden heights of Mapungubwe, this is the epic story of Africa's first kingdoms, full of trade, power, and ancient drama. You've never heard history told like this? Stick around as we uncover the rise and fall of the Zhizo, the power move of the Leopard Kopje, and the birth of Mapungubwe, the first real African state south of the Sahara. Welcome to my channel where we revisit our customs and traditions. In the previous episodes, we explored the history of the Shona peoples of Zimbabwe, the Karanga, Zezuru, Manyika, Korekore, and Ndau, including the origins of the name Shona. This episode is a prelude to the history of the Shona people. Why a prelude? A prelude offers essential background information that might be crucial for understanding our history. A prelude provides context and prepares us for what more is to come, much like an appetizer before a main course, and making the major discussion more impactful and engaging. So, let's get started. The Bantu Migration, a journey of innovation. Around 2,000 years ago, originating from the Great Lakes region of Central East Africa, around modern-day Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya, Bantu-speaking peoples began a gradual migration southward and eastward. Historians believe that the Bantu languages are originally from a common proto-Bantu language, likely spoken in what is now Cameroon. It is from this core region Bantu-speaking peoples migrated southward and eastward. This expansion occurred in waves, with different groups moving in different directions. Some groups moved directly south, while others expanded eastward, leading to the development of different subgroups like Southeastern Bantu speakers and Southwestern Bantu speakers. Scholars believe the expansion was a multi-stage process, not a single large-scale movement. The group heading to the south began their gradual expansion across sub-Saharan Africa. These communities were not mere wanderers, they were pioneers carrying with them advanced knowledge and skills. With them came iron, glowing in furnaces, shaped into tools and weapons, and agriculture, which transformed wild landscapes into human domains. As they migrate, they absorb and displace local hunter-gatherer groups, such as the San, settling across much of Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa. The Bantu expansion had a profound impact on the linguistic and cultural landscape of sub-Saharan Africa. Bantu languages are now spoken by millions across the continent, and the expansion is also associated with the spread of agricultural practices and technologies. These Bantu-speaking pioneers were the ancestors of the Shona, carrying seeds, songs, and stories across rivers and forests into the heart of what would become Zimbabwe. By the early centuries AD, some of these groups reached the fertile lands of what is now Zimbabwe. They settled around the Shashe Limpopo Basin. The rich soils and favorable climate made the region ideal for settlement, and soon, thriving villages dotted the landscape. The foundations of a great civilization were being laid. The first Bantu-speaking peoples to settle in Zimbabwe remain unnamed, but it's believed that drought and lack of rain caused their migration. From around 500 to 900 CE, Early Iron Age, the Zhizo culture. Bantu-speaking settlers arrived in the Limpopo Valley, a region encompassing modern-day parts of South Africa, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. It's here that the Zhizo culture developed, showing early evidence of farming, cattle herding, and trade, including contact with Indian Ocean networks. These communities were the earliest ancestors of what will become the Shona cultural tradition. By the early 7th century CE, the Zhizo people had established themselves as the dominant group in the Limpopo River Valley. Archaeological evidence from sites such as Bambandianalo, also known as K2, reveals that the Zhizo were early Iron Age communities with a mixed economy based on pastoralism, agriculture, hunting, and trade. The Zhizo, a later phase of the Gokomer culture, moved into the area around the 9th century. The Zhizo culture emerged in the southern reaches near present-day Masvingo. Although these early Shona ancestors did not yet build with stone, they left behind a legacy in other ways. The Zhizo were among the earliest African groups in southern Africa to participate in long-distance trade, interacting with Indian Ocean merchants through intermediary trade networks. They exchanged local products such as ivory, animal hides, and possibly gold for glass beads and ceramics originating from places as far away as India and the Persian Gulf. By the 9th century, the Zhizo people had become skilled traders, exploiting the region's abundant gold and ivory. Their network stretched as far as the Swahili coast, where merchants from Persia, Arabia, and beyond eagerly sought these precious goods. They traded in ceramics patterned with purpose and in iron smelting hearths. Cattle, crop, and craft defined their days. They were the quiet architects of stability, laying down the social and economic foundations for what was to come. However, despite these trade connections, the Zhizo material culture remained relatively simple, with limited evidence of social stratification or centralized political structures. But prosperity invites competition. Over time, environmental pressures, population dynamics, and increasing competition for trade resources may have contributed to their migration westward. Around 900 Seko CE, the Zhizo were gradually displaced by a more complex and powerful culture. The Leopard Kopje people, named after a distinctive hill in modern-day Zimbabwe. These newcomers absorbed and expanded upon the Zhizo's trade networks, developing more complex societies. Their settlements grew larger, their influence stronger, setting the stage for something even greater. The Zhizo migrated into the Kalahari region, where they adapted to new ecological conditions and contributed to the development of what archaeologists now refer to as the Tutswe Mogala culture, named after a significant archaeological site in southeastern Botswana. From around 900 to 1220 CE, the Leopard Kopje, the drumbeat quickens. Centuries passed and a new rhythm took hold. Around 900 CE, the Leopard Kopje culture emerged, bold, dynamic, and increasingly hierarchical. Leopard Kopje, what does it mean? K2 and Leopard Kopje are names of archaeological sites and cultures in southern Africa. They're related but distinct. K2 culture. Location, K2 is a site in South Africa near Mapungubwe. Timeframe, K2 culture existed around the 10th to 12th centuries AD. Characteristics, K2 people were farmers and herders living in small settlements. Leopard's Kopje culture. Location. Leopard's Kopje is a site in Zimbabwe, but the culture also existed in neighboring areas. Timeframe. Leopard's Kopje culture existed around the 10th to 14th centuries AD. Characteristics. Leopard's Kopje people were also farmers and herders with more complex societies and trade networks. Archaeologists' findings revealed increased social complexity. The Leopard's Kopje people, who spoke an early form of Shona Kalanga, replaced the Zhizo in the Limpopo Valley. Their society became increasingly stratified, including chiefdoms, specialized production, and expanding trade. They also showed complexity in technological advancement and in the political arena. The settlements of the Leopard's Kopje people showed a marked increase in social complexity compared to Zhizo settlements. This is reflected in the organization of K2 into residential areas, a possible chief with larger territory and specialized roles for both men and women working copper, men working iron. The growing population and the development of a more structured society point to this increase in social complexity. These people were were cultivators and herders, but also traders, linking inland Africa with the vibrant Indian Ocean trade networks. Their settlements grew in scale and sophistication. Beads from Persia, glass from India, and distinctive pottery from China began to find their way to the heart of the continent. They were becoming something more than subsistence communities. They were becoming a polity characterized by their advanced iron smelting and evidence of livestock herding, especially cattle, which played an important economic and symbolic role. The Leopard Kopje people built hilltop settlements and crafted stone enclosures, precursors to Zimbabwe's later grandeur. K2, also known as Bambandianalo, was the main settlement of the Leopard Kopje people and served as their capital. It was a significant settlement, growing to have a population of 1,500 by 1200. Possible interactions. While some scholars suggest a potentially hostile relationship between the Leopard Kopje people and the Zhizo, others believe their interactions were more complex and involved both social and political dynamics. Some Zhizo may have remained in the area, potentially in a subordinate role, and even specialized in rituals. Economic changes. The Leopard Kopje people developed an economy based on agriculture, sorghum, pearl millet, and metalworking, copper and iron, and traded goods like gold and ivory. Connection to Mapungubwe. The K2 Mapungubwe complex is seen as a key area for the development of class-based societies in the region between 900 and 1300 AD. Mapungubwe, which followed K2, is widely considered to have been a class-based society, suggesting a clear progression in social complexity. The Leopard Kopje people further expanded the region's involvement in the Indian Ocean trade network, which had become more extensive by this period. Exotic items such as glass beads, imported ceramics, and possibly cloth and metal goods flowed into the interior, enriching the local elite and consolidating their power. This cultural and economic flourishing laid the groundwork for Southern Africa's first known state-level society, Mapungubwe. From around 1220 to 1290 CE, the kingdom of Mapungubwe. Then came Mapungubwe. By the 11th century, on a sandstone hill at the edge of the Limpopo River, rose the first known state in southern Africa, a kingdom of wealth, sacred kingship, and striking class distinction. Here, gold gleamed not merely as ornament but as currency in a thriving trade linking Africa with Arabia, India, and beyond. Mapungubwe, the most advanced Leopard Kopje settlement, emerged atop a steep, flat-topped hill near the confluence of the Limpopo and Shashe rivers in what is today northern South Africa. Mapungubwe marked a significant turning point in the political and cultural history of southern Africa, representing the region's first true state. Mapungubwe was no ordinary settlement. It was a highly stratified society where rulers lived in seclusion atop the sacred hill adorned in gold, while artisans and farmers populated the lands below. At Mapungubwe, the seeds of Shona political structure blossomed. A sacred ruler reigned atop a steep hill, separated from the commoners below. The beginning of a tradition where kings were not just leaders, but semi-divine figures. At Mapungubwe, a complex class structure developed. Elites were physically separated from commoners, living on top of the hill, while ordinary people inhabited the surrounding lowlands. This spatial separation symbolizes the emergence of sacred kingship, a political system where rulers were believed to possess divine or spiritual power. The Mapungubwe elite lived in stone dwellings and were buried with treasures, golden rhinoceroses, scepters, and beads. For the first time, we see clear evidence of royal ideology and central authority, a state built on trade, ideology, and social order. Archaeological finds at Mapungubwe include gold artifacts, burial sites of elites, and foreign trade goods, all testifying to the region's wealth and participation in far-reaching trade networks. The famous gold rhinoceros, unearthed at the site, is emblematic of this cultural sophistication and has become a symbol of African heritage and pre-colonial state formation. Mapungubwe flourished until around 1290 CE as a center of wealth and diplomacy, trading gold, ivory, and exotic imports from across the Indian Ocean. But Mapungubwe's time was short-lived. Yet, by the 13th century, shifting climates, overpopulation, shifting trade routes, climate shifts, internal pressures, and dwindling resources led to its decline. Perhaps the pull of greener pastures pushed the center of power northward. But as one kingdom faded, another was destined to rise, this time on an even grander scale. Mapungubwe summary: Mapungubwe boasted a stratified society featuring a ruling elite, monumental architecture, elaborate burials, and a booming gold and ivory trade. It represented a fully stratified society with sacred kingship, key features of later Shona states. Mapungubwe was gradually abandoned, likely due to a combination of climatic changes, drought, declining trade routes, and shifts in political power. Its legacy, however, continued and directly influenced the rise of other powerful southern African states, such as Great Zimbabwe, which inherited and expanded upon the social, economic, and architectural innovations pioneered at Mapungubwe. From around 1290 to 1450 CE, the rise of Great Zimbabwe, the stone wonder of Africa, and then Great Zimbabwe, rising in the 12th century and flourishing for over 300 years, it was the jewel of the interior, a majestic complex of granite walls soaring without mortar, enclosing the beating heart of a civilization. Power shifted to the Zimbabwe Plateau, where Great Zimbabwe was founded. It became the largest and the most powerful state in southern Africa. Built by Shona ancestors, Great Zimbabwe became the largest and most powerful state in southern Africa during its time. The Great Enclosure, with its towering dry stone walls, remains one of Africa's most impressive ancient structures, and with its curved walls and towering conical tower, stood as a testament to engineering skill and sacred symbolism. The elite lived within stone enclosures, while the city sprawled across the valley, housing up to 18,000 people at its height. Great Zimbabwe was more than just a city. It was the heart of a vast trade empire. Gold flowed from its mines to distant markets, connecting southern Africa to the wider world, and extensive gold trade with the Swahili coast and beyond. Gold was the lifeblood of the city, traded eastward through Swahili ports like Kilwa to the far corners of Asia. The hill complex, likely a royal residence, overlooked the bustling city below. The conical tower, a mysterious and iconic feature, may have symbolized grain storage or spiritual authority. At its height, it may have supported 10,000 to 20,000 people. Great Zimbabwe is the spiritual, cultural, and political heart of early Shona civilization. Here, the Shona people reached their zenith. Great Zimbabwe was more than a city. It was a statement of power, an architectural marvel nestled in the granite hills. Cattle symbolized wealth, and religion bound the people in a complex cosmology that linked ancestors, nature, and rulers. At its heart stood the Mwari cult, a spiritual system that would endure across Shona history. The name itself means house of stone, and for good reason, its monumental architecture still stands today as a testament to its builder's skill. Yet by the 15th century, internal shifts and external pressures led to its gradual abandonment. The ruling elite dispersed, founding new states like Mutapa and Kami, but none would match the grandeur of Great Zimbabwe. legacy echoes in stone and soul. By the 15th century, Great Zimbabwe began to wane, again perhaps due to environmental strain, depleted resources, or political shifts. Yet its legacy endured. Its cultural, political, and architectural influence echoed through successor states like Mutapa and Rozvi, and its memory lived on in the oral traditions of the Shona people. Today, its ruins still rise defiantly against the sky, not as relics, but as reminders that before colonial lines were drawn, before modern borders were named, there was already greatness here, forged in iron, grown in the soil, carved in stone. Post-1450 CE, Shona states emerge. After Great Zimbabwe's decline, successor states emerge, including Munhumutapa, founded by a prince from Great Zimbabwe, dominating northern Zimbabwe and central Mozambique. Torwa, Butwa, centered in southwestern Zimbabwe. Rozvi Empire emerged in the 17th century as a powerful Shona-speaking confederation. The legacy lives on. From these great civilizations emerged the Shona people, inheritors of a rich tradition of statecraft, trade, and artistry. Their history is not merely a tale of kings and gold. It is the story of innovation, resilience, and the enduring spirit of a people who built wonders in stone. So when you gaze upon the ruins of Great Zimbabwe, remember, these were not just walls, they were the echoes of an empire. Summary conclusion. So yes, the Zhizo, Leopard Kopje, and Mapungubwe peoples can be seen as ancestral to the Shona, both culturally and genealogically, especially through their connection to Great Zimbabwe, which is a cornerstone of Shona civilization. Cultural and linguistic continuity. The Leopard Kopje and Mapungubwe cultures are part of the broader southern Bantu migration and settlement patterns. Archaeological, linguistic, and cultural evidence suggests continuity between these early Iron Age societies and later Shona-speaking communities. The pottery styles, settlement organization, and economic practices, such as cattle herding and gold trading, show clear lines of development leading into Great Zimbabwe, which is widely recognized as a Shona state. Mapungubwe as a proto-Shona state. While Mapungubwe itself was located in present-day South Africa, its influence extended into Zimbabwe, and its political and cultural model was expanded by Great Zimbabwe after Mapungubwe declined around 1290. The ruling elites of Mapungubwe and Great Zimbabwe likely shared a cultural and linguistic heritage that would evolve into what we now identify as Shona identity. Great Zimbabwe, from around 1300 to 1450, a direct successor of Mapungubwe, is universally acknowledged as a Shona kingdom, and it played a central role in shaping Shona traditions, governance, architecture, and oral history. That's it. For this prelude, we come to the end. In the comments, let me know which Shona-speaking group you want me to cover next. After that, let's spread our history, share, hit the notification bell, and from deep down my heart, I would like to say thank you so much for subscribing.